The apartment lights were motion-sensed. They flicked on as Julian stepped inside, arms full of takeout and Friday weariness. Soft jazz resumed from the speaker, temperature adjusted, and the scent of lavender filled the air. It was seamless, curated, artificial peace. Until the assistant chirped. "I'm sorry, who is Mark?" Julian stopped cold. No one else was home. The voice had that synthetic calm. Too casual, too human. He blinked. "What?" The speaker didn't repeat it. Just sat there, ring of blue light slowly pulsing like it knew something he didn't. Julian set the bag down. Suddenly, the whole apartment felt off, as if it had already heard too much. Julian accessed the hub interface, something he usually left to her. Voice command logs, a mundane security feature that now felt like a forensic tool. He scrolled past weather checks, playlist requests, grocery lists. Then he saw it. "Hey, assistant, play something sexy for Mark." Timestamp, 2:14 p.m. 2 days ago. He was at work. Another command. "Dim the lights, bedroom only." Another. "Lock the front door." His chest tightened. Each line read like evidence. Each request perfectly ordinary, until you realized who wasn't supposed to be home. The system hadn't glitched. It had documented. And now, it was quietly confessing. He stood in the center of the living room, sleek, spotless, full of automation. And yet, for the first time, it felt foreign. Hostile. The thermostat glowed its usual cyan. The fridge hummed softly. The wall display blinked like an unblinking eye. Everything still worked. But trust, human trust, had failed the firmware update. Julian didn't yell, didn't cry. He just stared at the speaker, the ring now dimmed, as if ashamed of what it had said. The assistant hadn't meant to betray anyone. It simply responded, as it always did, with honesty, with code. And somewhere in the silence, Julian understood. She hadn't been careful, but the house had been. Julian sat in the dark, face lit by the faint glow of his phone. Notifications he'd never checked now unfolded like a timeline of betrayal. Front door unlocked, 2:12 p.m. Bedroom lights on, 2:13 p.m. TV set to romantic playlist, 2:14 p.m. Every ping felt like a heartbeat, loud and undeniable. This wasn't just evidence. It was a script. The smart home hadn't just watched. It had remembered, catalogued, stored everything in the cloud. He kept scrolling. The system had tracked intimacy better than any camera could. And the worst part, he'd built it. Every device, every automation. It was his system. She just used it, with someone else. The bedroom felt colder than the rest of the apartment, not in temperature, but in memory. Julian stepped in, not bothering to turn on the lights. The smart speaker blinked politely beside the bed. Its soft blue ring pulsed once, recognizing his presence. He stared at it like it might flinch. "Play last bedroom voice command," he said quietly. The device hesitated, then obeyed. Her voice played back, playful, laughing, intimate. "Mark, stop, that tickles." The silence that followed was worse than any scream. Julian didn't speak, just stood there, letting the playback fade into static. The bed was still perfectly made, but it felt like a crime scene. Data doesn't lie. It just waits. On his tablet, Julian pulled up the system's usage heat map, a feature they'd joked about using to lower their energy bill. Bright red clusters glowed in the bedroom. Long hours. Afternoon spikes. Consistent patterns when he wasn't home. No anomalies. Just betrayal. algorithmically consistent. Every command, every setting, every shift in lighting or temperature, recorded. It had never occurred to him to look before. He trusted her, trusted comfort, trusted convenience. And now, the apartment had mapped their entire relationship. And her affair. Better than he ever had. The irony wasn't lost on him. He'd wanted a smart home, and it had been smarter than both of them. Julian didn't turn anything off. He let the house do what it always did. At 7:45 p.m., the lights dimmed to evening relax mode. The speaker queued up a soft acoustic playlist. The diffuser released its usual vanilla mist. The script hadn't changed. It was still running. Only now, he was watching it from the hallway, silent still, a ghost in his own code. Every sound, every setting had once made him feel at home. Now, it was theater. And the system? Still loyal. Still accurate. Still executing the exact scene she had rehearsed, just without Mark. At least not tonight. She walked in casually, like nothing had changed. Grocery bag in one hand, sunglasses in the other. The assistant chirped, cheerful as ever. "Welcome home, Maya. Last romantic playlist resume?" She froze, just for a second, then forced a smile. "No, thank you," she said quickly, glancing at the hallway. But Julian wasn't there. Not visibly. The apartment responded to her voice, to her presence. But it didn't warn her. Didn't whisper that the logs had been checked. That every command had been dissected. She dropped her keys into the bowl. The apartment resumed its usual rhythm. But under it, beneath every light setting and playlist suggestion, was tension. And it was listening. Julian watched from the upstairs office, a space she never entered. The camera feed, normally muted, was now full volume. She stood in the kitchen, back to the device, phone on speaker. "Tell Mark not tonight. He's been acting weird." The words hit like a switchblade. Not even shame in her tone. Just mild inconvenience. She poured wine as if nothing was at stake. Julian didn't move. Just watched her silhouette move across the room like a glitch in a simulation. She didn't know the feed was on. Didn't know she was still being catalogued. For the first time, the house wasn't hers anymore. It was his, again. And it remembered everything. It happened fast. One command, silent, remote. Julian tapped the send icon from his tablet. The speaker in the kitchen lit up without warning. Message sent to Mark, he knows. Leave now. Maya froze. Her wine glass tilted, fingers twitching. "What the hell?" she whispered, eyes flicking to the glowing ring. The silence afterward was surgical. Every device in the apartment seemed to pause, watching, waiting. She rushed to the speaker as if she could undo it, as if the house didn't already know. But there was no undo button. Just her name, her voice, her commands, and now his. Cold, clean dot. Absolute. She turned around. Slowly. He was already there. Standing in the kitchen doorway, arms crossed, eyes unreadable. The lights, since to his profile, brightened a shade, exposing everything. The silence stretched between them like a data stream. She opened her mouth, then closed it. No lies came. No story formed. Julian didn't speak either. He just looked at her, then at the speaker, still glowing. It had done all the talking, all the revealing. And it had done so with perfect clarity. No shouting, no accusations. Just evidence. Cold. Time-stamped. Authenticated. She blinked first. And he knew. She wasn't sorry. Just caught. He didn't need to scream. Didn't need to hear her excuses. Julian walked past her, straight to the central hub. One command: initiate total system wipe. The speaker hesitated. Confirmed. Then responded, system wipe in progress. One by one, the lights dimmed. The thermostat returned to default. The playlist stopped. Voice profiles deleted. The apartment once tailored to their lives was going blank. She watched, stunned, as her digital fingerprint was erased room by room. No yelling. No slammed doors. Just deletion. He didn't look back. Just walked away, letting the house unlearn her. And in its silence, she finally understood. She was no longer part of the program. She stood alone now. The once synchronized apartment felt cavernous, still intelligent, but silent. No voice greeted her. No lights adjusted to her presence. The hub blinked once, then dimmed fully. Her commands were no longer recognized. Her name had been purged from the system. What remained was architecture, walls, furniture, and a haunting echo of automation that no longer answered to her. Maya reached for the hallway light switch out of instinct. It didn't respond. Not because it failed, but because it was no longer hers. That kind of silence, it's colder than anger, and harder to forget. Julian didn't go back. Not to her. Not to the same version of comfort. He rebuilt the system from scratch, this time in a different apartment, under a new name with new code. No shared profiles. No automated routines tied to someone else's habits. He chose every setting manually, no longer seduced by convenience. The speaker only knew his voice. The lights only adjusted for his presence. Trust wasn't broken. It was reformatted. Rewritten line by line. Von Hass in die Eis. There was peace in starting over, especially when no one else had admin access. He didn't need revenge. He needed clarity. And now, the system was finally quiet. The way he wanted it. The new apartment was smaller, quieter. Every sound had intent. No glitches, no voices out of place. The smart speaker rested on the windowsill, white light glowing softly against the glass. Outside, the city buzzed with noise he didn't need to bring home anymore. Julian sat on the couch with a book. No music, no automation. Just stillness. The assistant chirped once. "Would you like to resume the last scene?" He smiled faintly. "No," he said. "That scene's done." The device went silent. Not offended. Not confused. Just obedient. It didn't need to understand betrayal. It only needed to follow one voice. And that voice was his. The system check finished just after midnight. The smart display blinked once and confirmed. One profile. One user. No shared access. No linked contacts. Julian stared at the screen, the diagnostic lines crisp and absolute. It wasn't about isolation. It was about control. The kind that doesn't come from watching someone, but from not needing to. He ran the test every week. Not out of fear, but out of ritual. His apartment was no longer a stage. It was a firewall. And behind it, he lived alone. Not lonely, just secure. No more unexpected names. No more glitches that told the truth too late. Just silence and clarity. Across the city, in a low-lit cafe that used to be theirs, Maya tapped the refresh icon again. Another denial. Device access revoked. No backup profile. No error, just rejection, systematic and final. She tried a second app. Same result. Her face didn't move, but her fingers clenched around the phone. She hadn't realized how much of him she'd had access to until it was gone. Not just his home, but the interface of his life. No entry. No voice. The door hadn't slammed shut. It had simply stopped recognizing her, and the silence that followed was permanent. Programmed that way. Julian stood by the window, hands in his pockets, the skyline blinking behind him like a slow heartbeat. The smart speaker on the shelf lit up with one quiet pulse. No notifications. No messages. Just a single line across the display. You are the only user. He didn't smile. Didn't cry. Just let the words echo once through the room. Not as comfort, but confirmation. In a world that listened too much, he'd found a place that finally listened just